Hello everyone. I all hope yeah. Hello everyone. Hello everyone. While I'm also quietly back, as you can quietly see, guys, and happy New Year to all of you guys. I all hope you enjoyed your holidays and everything else. And as you can see, I'm back, and I'm back to do more episodes and more characters for you, and all the superheroes and the bad guys and the super villains and the ancient secret societies and the worst of the worst and also the good of the good and the most powerful villains and the most darkest and the most very, very dangerous, deadly foes and adversaries as well. Guys, just for you, in order for you guys to know one thing, I'm completely grateful for your support in watching and in viewing my episodes. It gratefully means a lot to me, as in completely means a lot to me. So grateful for you guys. Please continue to view my episodes and watching my episodes and my videos, and also please continue to subscribe and also watch more of my episodes and my videos as well. And also, God bless you all and Happy New Year to all of you guys. Completely. Happy New Year to all of you. On today's episode, we're to speak about the story of Ivy Ferris Hellfire, who is a Four Nation hunter and a member of the Universal Heroes, who she was quietly raised on planet Earth many, many years ago as an infant and raised to have a human heart before she discovered the ancient secretive war, before she discovered the ancient secretive war before she discovers the ancient secretive war of the supernaturals and Four Nation hunters and supervillains and secret threats and powerful forces of evil who have been waging war against each other for many centuries and for many years, and who are willing to exterminate and eradicate the supernaturals and and the supernaturals and the rest of the aliens and superhumans in the process, in order for them to further their ultimate goals and their sole plans for universal domination and for world domination in a process. Well, let's get to it. In Ferris Hellfire's early life, she was born as an infant on planet Origin many, many years ago. During at that time planet Origin was quietly about to be extinct and about to be annihilated. Her mother known as Freya Ferris was able to exactly take her child into a stasis pod and plunge herself into a stasis pod, and they both completely escaped planet Origin during at that time, which was about to be exterminated and as well about to be annihilated as well during at that time. Within that time, Abby Ferris arrived on planet Earth as an infant child, and alongside with her mother as well, which the both of them were able to arrive safely within one of her home mom's apartment, and keeping their secretive arrivals of the stasis pod quietly secretive. And also during at that time, Fair continued to raise Ivy Ferris Hellfire, and able to guide her to giving her a human heart, and also training her to have a human heart in a very much good condition, and able to defend herself and as well as to protect herself as well in the process. Over the following years, Ivy Ferris grew closer to the humans and everything else, while her mother continued to protect her from the sacred world's threats and evil forces of the monsters of the dark dimension, who continue to hunt her down, which has been the greatest which Freya Ferris has been one of the greatest enemies, and the monsters of the dark dimension never forget a Four Nation hunter as well, which they continue to hunting her throughout the human world, and which they continue to do so. During at that time, Ivy Ferris grew very, very close with the humans and very, very, very companion with the humans, and she made some human friends along the way, and her childhood began exactly changing over the following years. Within the age of 20, sudden changes began to exactly emerge from Ivy Ferris's life, where she began drawing some ancient creatures and monsters, and very, very, very disturbing things. And her mother realizes that Ivy Ferris has already began to gain the secretive side of the sacred world, and she already began to have memories of ancient creatures and monsters and very powerful Four Nation hunters who were at war with these creatures and beings. During that time, Freya discovered that her daughter's life is in very much in grave danger from a powerful, mad, man of a psychopath known as her father as Valak Hellfire, who is Ivy Ferris's father, who is willing to exterminate and eradicate, and who's willing to exterminate and eradicate the supernaturals and the aliens and the superhumans in the process in order to cleanse the world and the rest of humanity by any means necessary. During at that time, Freya became very completely honest with Ivy Ferris telling her that she's a Four Nation hunter, one of the most powerful Four Nation hunters, and that she comes from a hidden universe and a hidden world that's on the brink of great war, and that she's quietly wanted and being hunted down by the most powerful, deadliest Four Nation hunter known as Valak Hellfire. She even told her daughter that Valak Hellfire is her father, who's one of the worst Four Nation hunters, one of the greatest supervillain, and also excuse me, and also as subordinate, and also as a subordinate, and also as a subordinate of the original Lord of Magic as well, which the three share a common interest and a common goal as well. From that time on, Fair began protecting her daughter from the rogue evil Four Nation hunters who began exactly invading their home, and Ivy Ferris exactly had no choice but to flee until she was quietly saved by Vargol Starwood Smith, who was able to use his blade in order to kill the evil rogue Four Nation hunters. During at that time, Valak Vogel began explaining everything else she can about Ivy. Began explaining to Ivy everything about the war, everything about the Sacred World's wars, propaganda and its politics, and everything that's been going down since she's been raised within the human world, and she's been humanitarian to the human world for many years, and as well as for many centuries ago as well, telling her the history of Valak Hellfire, telling her the history of Valak Hellfire and the Shadow Force and the original Little Magic and everything else. Meaning, in other words, that Ivy Ferris realizes that she's literally completely part of an ancient war that's been going on for many millennia and for many centuries as well. Meaning, it's been going on for centuries and for many years, and it's important that it remains secretive and that it be kept a very much of a secretive war from the rest of humanity and throughout the rest of mankind as well. In a process, Vogel began exactly explaining to Ivy that there are some threats within the human world that are well aware of the sacred world and the sacred universe existence, who would begin forming alliances with the forces of the sacred world in order to aid each other on their common interests and as well on their common goals as well. At that time, Ivy Ferris began to discover that she's part of a Hellfire family and that she's part of the Ferris family. In doing so, Ivy decided that she'll join forces with Vogel, Sam, and Hank in order to aid them to stop one of the most dangerous, powerful, evil Four Nation hunter, including even her father as well in the process. And she's willing to do whatever it takes to restore peace and balance and formalities to the supernaturals, aliens, superhumans, and to the rest of the sacred world's peace, and to the rest of the sacred world's peace, and to the rest of the known universe, and to the sacred universe as well in the process by any means necessary. On the 1st of January, Ivy Ferris was beginning her training as a Four Nation hunter as she was continuing her training and gratefully making progress as Sam continued to train her, monitoring her training skills and her fighting skills as well, as they were able to open up the news and able to see that able to realize that the United Heroes are also fighting a very difficult battle against the other forces of evil that are from the sacred world and the other forces of evil that are from the human world, which are exactly attacking. Sam Starwood told Ivy Ferris that their true mission and job is to protect humanity from the forces of evil and also from the monsters of the dark dimension by any means necessary as well. On the 3rd of January, Ivy Ferris, then Vogel and Hank and Sam Starwood, and also with Ivy Ferris Hellfire's best friend, known as KD, decided to join in on Ivy's new life adventure and everything else, and also ensuring that he won't tell his family or anyone else, making sure that the secret of the sacred world and the rest of the sacred universe remains secretive and remains very well protective as well. During at that time, the other members tried to discover more and everything else about Ivy Ferris's past and history throughout the Sacred Wars connection in order to help find her mother and also to protect her as well in the process. They were able to come across against a group of powerful dark monsters inside a supernatural club where vampires and werewolves and supernaturals and aliens and superhumans can able to roam wild and roam free to be themselves, and they were able to create chaos and they were able to cause chaos and Ivy Ferris used her Formation Hunter blade in order to slay some of the monsters, and able to take them down completely. And she was very successful in taking them down completely, as the other warlocks known as Baal promised the Formation Hunters that he'll become their ally and as well as a friend in helping them uncover more secrets about Ivy Ferris's past and also history. Anything that can help them, to track down Freya Ferris in order for her to save her mother from the forces of evil, in order to uncover more truth about her past and as well about her history as well in the process of the conflict. On the on the 9th of January, Ivy Ferris began having visions and nightmares of her past life, being as an origin child born from birth, able to join monsters and creatures and warlocks and fairies and witches and everything and druids and all of that, until her best friend Katie exactly woke her up and told her what was a dream about. Ivy Ferris told Katie that the dream was about her past life and being connected to a very, very much of a dying planet, of a dying world that's been dying for many, many years and for many, many centuries. Vogel told Ivy Ferris that the dying world that she envisioned is known as Planet Origin, which was an ancient secret society of great, great peacekeepers and justice and peacekeepers, and also an ancient police force of hybrid aliens who are tasked and destined to restoring peace and balance and prosperity to the sacred world and to the rest of humanity as well in the process. But they were gratefully extinct and wiped out by the planet's annihilation, and also by the annihilation of the original Lord of Magic, who gratefully extinguished them and wiped them out due to the fact that he knew that there was a growing threat of the new child of prophecy who would become the greatest threat to his rise to power and also to his ascending, which was the reason why he had to wipe them out and annihilate them out in the process as well. Ivy Ferris was very gratefully shocked and very, very gratefully surprised that the most powerful, dangerous, deadliest ancient threats known as the Lord of Magic, was behind the extinction and the extermination of the Origin in order to hunt down this new ancient prophesied child. Ivy Ferris promised her, the rest of her teammates, and the rest of her friends and her people that she'll do everything else in her ability to find her mother in order to stop her father and the new Lolo and the original Lolo Magic in a process, in order to restore peace and balance and formality to the supernaturals, aliens and superhumans, and to the Formation Hunter, and also by removing and disposable of the threats and all the obstacles that are willing to get in the way of the problem as well in the process. On the 11th of January, Sam Starwood and Ivy Ferris and Hank and Woggle exactly entered throughout the great ancient city of the sand in order to know more about the ancient wars and everything else. And to this point, they discovered that the ancient history that Vogel, that Balak Hellfire, and the rest of the former members of the Shadow Force began an uprising many years ago in order for them to save humanity, and in order for them to destroy the supernaturals and the aliens and the superhumans in the process. To this point, Balak Hellfire, and Zacchaeus Darkest, and the rest of the former members of the Shadow Force, including Freya and the other members of the Shadow Force, completely defected, which created a battle within the within the Four Nation Hunter city, where the Four Nation Hunters began fighting amongst themselves in order to prevent Valak Hellfire from decimating and wiping out the supernaturals and the aliens and the superhumans in the process, which was heavily prevented at a great cost, which created new ancient threats and powerful forces of evil in the process as well, which which exactly created new powerful forces of evil and deadly threats in the process, which has created a new deadly threats and evil forces of evil in the process as well. During which, on that process, the monsters of the dark dimension took the opportunity to themselves in order to create carnage, havoc, and chaos and destruction in the process, in order for them to lay waste to the origin and to the Formation Hunter. After discovering the most powerful dark history and the most greatest dark history ever, Ivy Ferris asked one of Freya Ferris's oldest friend, known as Luke Darkest, who is a former Formation Hunter, and now who has become a powerful world leader, who has in other ways been also been helping raising Ivy as acting as her biological dad and father, telling Ivy Ferris that everything that happened in the past was all quietly true, and it quietly led to this moment of you being born and everything else, and now it's your job and duty to help find your mother and to stop one of the most dangerous, powerful, greatest, deadliest Formation Hunter ever before they could destroy humanity and the sacred world and the rest of sacred existence in the process as well. And Ivy Ferris was very quietly determined in order to do that by any means necessary. On the 13th, on the 13th of January, Ivy Ferris and the rest of our Formation Hunter friend and Vogel and the rest of the other supernaturals began an uprising in order to stop the Formation Hunters from repeating past mistakes, in order for them from repeating past mistakes, which began in an all-out war when the supernaturals of the worlds, the vampires, the witches, the druids, the warlocks, and the fairy witches, and the fairies, and the superhumans and the aliens all began working together as one in order to stop the Formation Hunters from repeating past mistakes, which could have prevented one druid from being heavily interrogated and from being heavily executed for a crime which Valak Hellfire dispatched a very powerful, deadly monster to breach into the Formation Hunter headquarters for them to create havoc and destruction, for him to create havoc and chaos upon its wake. During at that time, Ivy Ferris told the supernaturals and the aliens and the superhumans and half of the Formation Hunters to join forces and to work together in order to prevent one of the most deadliest threats from wreaking havoc across the sacred world and across the rest of humanity, which they all decided to agree on upon by working together, and also by working together as teammates as well. And they all agreed that they'll do all they can in order to restore peace and balance to the sacred world and to the rest of humanity as well in the process by any means necessary. On the 14th of January, Ivy Ferris and Vogel journeyed into the sacred forest where one of the druid completely exactly opened up a portal to the other side. When one of the druid opened up a portal to the other side in order to go find Ferris, in order to find Freya Ferris on the other side, telling them that the portal is to another dimension, which is a very different dimension from other worlds and other planets, which is just a pocket dimension where things are very quietly different and where things are very quietly normal and people are very quietly normal and everything else. And the tales about the supernaturals and the Formation Hunters and the wars of the other side have been erased and have been eradicated, and Formation Hunters coexist and live among the humans, and everything else has been restored to normal. Despite that, Ivy Ferris and Vogel journeyed straightly into the other pocket dimension, not realizing that a monster from the pocket dimension was following them until the druid used his light magic in order to destroy the monster, but not badly enough until it called upon its friends, which the druid began shutting down the portal, but the monster went through to the other side. Vogel and Ivy Ferris journeyed into the pocket dimension where they realized that everyone else is coexisting with one another, and it's a normal universe. It's a normal universe where all wars and everything else have been erased and everyone else is normal. And she realizes that she sees her father and her mother getting along very well, and her friends and everything else quietly completely getting along very well. During at that time, the monster of the dark dimension chased them into the other dimension, and they completely exactly fought up against it, but their powers were completely dimmed and very much neutralized as the other druid opened up a portal to the other side and completely take down and decimate the monster in a process. They arrived on the other side where Ivy Ferris was able to exactly see her mother completely helpless until she fought up against her father's forces and completely took them down. Valak Hellfire reassured Ivy Ferris that she wants her to join forces with them in order for them to annihilate a common enemy in order to restore peace and balance to the sacred world and to protect in sacred peace from all threats and from all evil forces. Despite this, Vogel disagreed with Valak Hellfire's opinion and also goals, meaning that his goals and his imagination are quietly too destructive and are very quietly too powerful. Despite this, Vogel fought up against Valak Hellfire and completely took him down and was easily outmatched until Valak Hellfire disappeared into a portal. After that, her mother was completely safe as they were able to get some truth and some facts on everything else that was going on. On the 15th of January, Freya Ferris told Ivy Ferris everything else about the sacred world and its wars and its histories and its battle and against the new and original and also of the original Lord of Magic and everything else that's been happening for the past few couple of months and years and for many centuries as well. Meaning, in other words, that it can open up some histories and some doors into a past as well. Ivy Ferris was very very quietly determined in order to stopping her father and making sure that the extermination and the annihilation of the supernaturals and the aliens and the superhumans never gets to bear fruit by any means necessary as well. On the 17th of January, Ivy Ferris and the rest of the Four Nation Hunter allies journeyed straightly into the other dimension of the Sacred City, where they discovered a group of rogue, powerful Four Nation Hunters of the Shadow Force were completely journeying in there in order to begin the final step of the annihilation of wiping out the supernaturals and the aliens and the superhumans in the process, where Ivy Ferris fought her father for one last time, and this time she killed her father and was able to prevent the annihilation and the extermination of the supernaturals and the aliens and the superhumans at all costs, and she was gratefully victorious in a battle, and she was being crowned as a hero of the Four Nation Hunter, and that her example may able to bear fruit as well. On the 20th of January, the Four Nation Hunter founder and leader known as Four began introducing the universal heroes to Ivy Ferris and to the Four Nation Hunter, telling them that they'll be working together closely and that they'll remain working together closely as associates and that they'll be able to be partnership. Hank Stout offered his assistance and help to Universal and stated to him that they should remain partners and also associates and also close friends as well. And also Grayson Ferris told Ivy Ferris that they are quietly siblings and also distant cousins as well. Ivy Ferris was very quietly, literally surprised as she discovered her cousin in this new sacred world, in this new sacred world that he was the relative that she's been seeking for all these years. And her mother also told Grayson Ferris that she also knew his mother and father very well, that they were also great heroes of the sacred world and the rest of humanity as well. Despite this, she wanted to become a member of the Universal Heroes, and Grayson reassured the Four Nation Hunter allies that they are already the members of the Universal Heroes and that they should forge the new alliance once and for all as well. And they completely agreed to that, the Universal Heroes and the Four Nation Hunter will become the new alliance. And Ivy Ferris was completely surprised and very pleased with this, as in very completely pleased with it, that she was able to bond with her distant relative, that she was able to create a bond with her distant relative and cousin, knowing that they are quietly come from the same world and from the same planet they were quietly born with as well. On the 21 of January, KD told Ivy Ferris that she's leaving the sacred world and everything else top of it, that she's going back to the human world in order to remain there for his protection, to protecting his family and everything else. Ivy Ferris told that she totally agreed with Katie that he has to do whatever it takes to protect his family and everyone else. But despite that, she was very grateful for him to joining her on the adventure and everything else. And Katie was reluctantly pleased that she was also very quietly, completely grateful that she was able to stick with her and stand by her side through all of it and through all of it all. and that she was able to remain, that she will remain also remaining as his best friend no matter what. And they completely hugged each other and completely gone their separate ways after that. On the 25, the monsters of the dark dimension began breaching inside the human world, where the 4 nation hunters were all completely authorized in order to stop them from attacking the rest of humanity and the rest of humanity across the cities, which the 4 nation hunters have been all quietly been dispatched in order to taking them down and also to neutralizing them down in the process, which they completely decimated them all completely and then completely wiped them all out completely in a battle that the 4 nation hunters were able to win was gratefully successful as well. On the 29 of January, when the 4 nation hunters completely celebrated their victory, they heard news of the original death of the original Lord of Magic, which created a power vacuum inside the Shadow Empire itself, forcing even the Shadow Empire warlord and commander to secretly forming alliances with ancient and powerful secret societies of supervillains such as the Order of the Five, the Order of the Six, the Order of the Seven, the founders and the Order of the Four, and the founders, the Order of the Four, the Sacred Circle, the Court of Nature, the Galactic, and the Unholy Alliance. In return, they'll secretly supply them with destructive technology and compatible technology. In return, these ancient secret societies will help them supply them with more worlds and with more planets. Realizing this, Hank Starwood told the 4 nation hunters that they are now in the middle of an all-out war and that the galaxy and the sacred universe and the sacred world are completely at war against the Shadow Empire warlords and commanders, that protecting mankind and humanity and the rest of the supernaturals and aliens and superhumans needs to be the balance, needs to be maintained at all given cost, no matter what. And Ivy Ferris agreed that the balance has to be maintained by any means necessary. On the 4th of February, Ivy Ferris and Boggle journeyed into the sacred caves, where they discovered that the monsters of the dark dimension had been heavily summoned by the most powerful dark magic users known as the Dark Druids, who've been using their dark magic and power to summon these beings and these creatures from the other side in order for them to lay waste and to wreak havoc from the other side, which they completely agree that the monsters of the dark dimension are still in the mortal world, and are still in the mortal plane, which completely continue to fighting up against them as they continue to fighting up against them, and they continue to decimating some of the other monsters. They reported back to HQ, which is one of the central headquarters in New York, and told them that the monsters of the dark dimension are still at large and are still wreaking havoc on the mortal plane and are still highly active. Despite this, Hank Starwood told Vogel that he couldn't dispatch available 4 nation hunters when all their resources are stretched too thin, and the United Heroes and the Intergalactic Coalition are doing everything else they can in their power in order to maintaining the cosmic balance of power as a forces of evil began secretly converging on one another in order for them to have sole control over the sacred universe and over the sacred world by any means necessary. And Hank Starwood stated that the balance of power has become a power struggle, and that was able to create a cause and effect throughout the sacred world and throughout the rest of the known universe and the rest of sacred existence, which they all began to agree on that point. On the 15th of February, a Shadow Empire warlord entered throughout the mortal plane, where he was able to teleport himself directly in order to enter planet Earth, where Ivy, Ferris, and Vogel and the rest of the other 4 nation hunters began fighting up against them and began completely taking him down and began completely taking him down and began completely fighting him down and by neutralizing him by any means necessary, which the battle continued to weigh as the Shadow Empire warlord was completely outnumbered and outmatched. Vogel began to ask the evil Shadow Empire warlord what was his purpose in coming to planet Earth and what was his sole reason for him to come to planet Earth. The Shadow Empire warlord told the 4 nation hunter Vogel Starwood Smith that he came here in order to destroy humanity and in order to wipe out humanity in the process. And Ivy Ferris began to sense that the Shadow Empire warlord was completely lying, as in literally lying. meaning in other words that there has to be more to his motives and to his goal and to his sinister plan, in other words, which the four nation hunters have to discover by any means necessary. On the 19th of February, the four nation hunters began to discover that the monsters of the dark dimension have begun invading other worlds and other dimensions, which the four nation hunters have to begin utilizing all their resources and everything else as possible in order to stop these dangerous beings and these forces of evil from wreaking havoc on a larger scale. Which Ivy Ferris began opening up a portal to the other side and teleporting as much four nation hunters to the other side, and Hank Starwood realizes that the alliance has begun its work and its true mission as well. And the front row seats. Ivy Ferris began teleporting to another dimension where Vogel and the rest of the four hunters began fighting up against a group of dark and powerful magic users known as the Dark Druid, who began using their magic and their power to decimate them and to completely try to decimate them and eradicate the four hunters, which the battle continued to weigh on both sides. As it continued to weigh on both sides, there were heavy losses and mass casualties on both sides as our heroes began to triumph as they began to arrive victoriously as well. On the 23rd of February, Ivy Ferris and Vogel and the rest of the four nation hunters began exactly stating as Hank Starr began to inform the rest of the four nation hunters that the war has become a very, very much of a darker turn and a very much of a very powerful war, meaning that the Shadow Empire warlords are very completely desperate and are willing to do whatever it takes to control the Shadow Empire and alter sacred history's fate by any means necessary. Meaning, in other words, the four nation hunters have been tasked with their missions in order to protecting mankind and humanity from all threats within the human world and within the sacred world and within the sacred universe and within the known universe by any means necessary. Ivy Ferris began drawing back into one of her sketchbooks, realizing that there must be something that they completely are missing, and her mother told her that whatever it is that they completely are missing, it's quietly not within her sketchbooks, it's quietly within her heart, that she needs to exactly completely find it as well. On the 25th of February, news of the disappearance of the Universal heroes has begun to shock the rest of sacred existence and the rest of the sacred universe, as it created another power vacuum from the other side. These further destabilizing some parts of the conquered worlds, planets, tribes, clans, and nations that have been conquered by the Star Empire, by the Star Empire and Dark Master's Empire, Lord Shadowjack's Empire, Lord Justin's Empire, and also from the Golden Universes as well, which created another power vacuum, which forces every other dark magic user, such as the Seconds, the Dark Druids, and the Dark Witches, to begin their ancient campaign in conquering many magical worlds, realms, dimension, universes, planets, sacred nations, which they began conquering those worlds and planets and civilization, and in the process they began to start annihilating and wiping out the four nation hunters and the allies of the Intergalactic Coalition in the process as well. On the 27th, Ivy Ferris realizes that the forces of evil are seriously busy and are heavily prepped on their schedule, meaning in other words that whatever it is that they're doing, it's not going to be good for humanity or for the rest of sacred existence and for the rest of the sacred world, meaning this will further create a very powerful rift among the supernaturals, aliens, superhumans in the process and among four nation hunters, meaning that the relations and formalities will continue to break and the peace and the peace that they've been fighting for will completely be broken in a matter of minutes as well. At that time, they began exactly asking the Shadow Empire warlord exactly what was literally happening within the Shadow Empire's region and also control. The Shadow Empire warlord told the four nation hunters that there's a new Lord of Magic who's highly active and is fully arising and ascending in power, forming his new ancient secret society of supervillains within the Shadow Empire itself, and is fully rising and fully ascending in power, and that he will continue the legacy and the work of the original Lord of Magic. Despite this, they were all completely terrified and all completely shocked out of their mind that there's now a new Lord of Magic who's completely rising, who's completely recruiting powerful warlords and Shadow Empire warlords and commanders and warlocks and powerful Dark Druid to join his new organization, and his new empire in the front with us. Despite this, Ivy Ferris told the Four Nation Hunters and the rest of her comrades and teammates that they cannot exactly give up that easily. They still have to do whatever it takes to restore peace and balance to the sacred world and to the rest of humanity by any means necessary. On the 27th, on the 29th of February, Ivy Ferris and the rest of the Four Nation Hunters began, and Hank Starwood and Sam Starwood and Hank and Valgo began creating a hologram meeting. With the founders, the Universal Magic Heroes, and with the founders, the Universal Magic and the Universal Space Defending Heroes, and also the Universal Space Heroes as well. Began creating a hologram meeting on to discuss the options and opinion that the chaos that's been created won't be able to be stopped that easily. Meaning, in other words, that they have to split their resources and everything else, and that the intergalactic coalition has become compromised. Despite this, Ivy Ferris told the rest of her teammates and the rest of their comrades that they cannot give up that easily. Meaning, in stopping the new Lord Magic and his new secret society and the rest of the other forces of evil has to come to an end and has to bear fruit. Meaning, the peace they've been fighting for has to be neutralized and it has to be maintained no matter what, not after everything they've been through, and it has to be fought for no matter what, no matter how difficult it is. And they all completely agreed that they'll all combine their resources and everything else in order to stop their common enemy and their adversaries as well, as they all completely agree. Despite this, Ivy Ferris Hellfire returned back to the Sacred Archives on the 1st of March in order to study more about the ancient wars and everything else, as to completely learning more and everything else about the ancient wars and battles and everything else that completely went down over the following years and over the following ancient time. And she was able to discover the ancient threats and the ancient forces that were quietly erased from sacred histories, wars and battles and conflict. And she discovered these forces of evil were erased for a reason, in order to keep their existence a full secretive, that they can able to work within the shadows of the sacred world and within the shadows of the sacred universes as well, in the process to further their own ancient imagination. Despite that, she told them the truth, that it's time for them to put an end to this war and to this conflict by any means necessary. Despite this, guys, Ivy Ferris Hellfire is very skilled in hand-to-hand combat, swordsmanship, agility, endurance, and also very skilled in opening portals, with super strength, super speed, super hearing, and also regenerative powers such as healing properties. She can heal very quickly. She's very, very skilled and very, very compassionate, very, very gifted, very, very loving. She has a heart of a human, raised by her mother Fair Ferris, in order to have the heart of a human, not to have the heart of a Four Nation Hunter, in order to protecting the rest of humanity in the process. She's very gifted with her abilities and with her powers, and she's willing to use them. She's willing to use them to protecting mankind and the rest of humanity in the process. She believes that the supernaturals and the aliens and the superhumans have to coexist and live together in balance by any means necessary with the Four Nation Hunters, despite them not trusting them so easily. And despite that, she's very quietly well aware of the threats and well aware of the ancient threats and of the ancient force of evil, such as the ancient secret societies of the supervillains, such as the Court of Nature, the Sacred Circle, the Order of the Five, the Order of the Six, and the Order of the Seven, and the Founders and the Galactic, and the Order of the Four, and the Founders and the Galactic, and the Order of the Four, and the Unholy Alliance as well, meaning that these ancient threats have been active for many centuries and for many years ago, and meaning for millennia, and they're willing to stop them and to cut the operation by any means necessary. Despite this, Ivy Ferris Hellfire is a very determined Four Nation Hunter, very loving and very compassionate, very, very intelligent, and very, very adaptable, and very, very, very skilled in hand-to-hand combat and in swordsmanship and in daggers, blades, and weapons. She's extremely an immortal, powerful formation hunter. She's lived for many, many years, and she was born as an infant. She was born as an infant on planet Origin before it was gratefully extinct and annihilated and wiped out by the original Nova Magic. Despite this, she's very compassionate and she's groomed, and she comes to be very, very, very fond of her comrades and her teammates as well. And she's willing to do whatever it takes to restoring sacred peace and balance to the sacred world and to the rest of humanity and to the rest of the known universe and to the rest of the sacred world by any means necessary. Well, guys, she's a high-ranking member of the Universal Heroes and a high-ranking member of the Four Nation Hunters and as well as of the New Alliance as well. Well, guys, that's it for today's episode. I'll see you exactly tomorrow. Thank you for watching, and it's good to be back, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care of yourself. Goodbye. God bless you all.